They'll put out those ads, or they'll give this information, or even at doctor's offices say you cannot be on this plan, or make sure that whatever you do not get a Medicare Advantage plan. And I can't get on board with that, because if you've got a hospital, or if you've got a doctor that's advising you, or a doctor's office that's advising you to just stick with original Medicare, that could lead to some huge financial problems, because understand, Medicare does not have a maximum, original Medicare does not have a maximum out-of-pocket limit. So if everything may be fine if you're just going through your routine care and receiving the routine services. But if you end up in a situation where maybe there's an accident, or you come down with a serious illness that's going to lead to some surgeries, or the recovery is going to be lengthy, then you're kind of opening up the gate. You're exposing yourself financially, because you're going to incur a lot of medical expenses while you're trying to overcome whatever the situation may be.
Yeah, I think there could also be more to that. It's not always just in rural areas. There are a lot of doctors, even here. We live in a city. We're in San Antonio, Texas, and go Spurs, go! Sorry, but we live in San Antonio, Texas, and so in San Antonio, I would say that it's one of, like, Medicare Advantage is a very, very strong option. And still you'll see doctors that are encouraging people not to get on these plans. And I think that there's more to it. In a lot of times it's extra work for those doctors. So if you're a primary care doctor, then you have to have someone full-time who's doing referrals, because otherwise they take forever. If you're a specialist, sometimes you're frustrated because you're waiting for them. And then sometimes we were talking to someone earlier today who works in billing for one of the hospital groups, and he's like, oh man, it's cumbersome. It's like, they have so many stops in place to not pay, and it's frustrating, and you have to jump through this hoop and that hoop to get to it. So I do think that there is some truth to it. It's not just like, oh, we just don't like Advantage plans. So the way that I probably would respond to this, and again, like you said, like if you're in a rural area, it's probably a different situation. But if you're in an Advantage market where Advantage plans do a good job, I would always have a conversation and say, hey, look, really it comes down to what's best for you, right? Whatever the option is that makes the most sense for you. I imagine that if you had the income of a doctor, you probably might make choices based differently than someone who's on a fixed income like yourself, right? So I can understand sometimes the doctors, because they're seeing things through the lens of being a lot of times millionaires, right? Like they're seeing things through that lens. And so sometimes they're going to give you advice on what they would do. Yeah. Like if you're making $700,000 a year, it's very easy to say, yeah, I would go with an Advantage. I mean, a Medicare supplement. But if you're on a fixed income, sometimes what makes the most sense for you might be a little bit more work for your doctor. And if it was me, I might be okay with them having a little bit more work, but ultimately it's up to you and whatever you decide. If they take the plan, that means they might not just prefer it, but I want to encourage you to make the decision that's best for you in your financial situation. Man, it's such a frustration of mine, and so I get heated about it, because it's true. Like, their financial situation is different than a senior who is retiring. And it's always a big frustration of mine when I hear, especially someone who lives in a low income area, who's clearly low income, and the doctors are serving a low income area. And it makes me very upset when I hear they're like, stay away from HMOs, stay away from them. Like, okay, how about, they're like, my doctor says never. I was like, well, one of our agents, he always would say like, okay, no, I understand you really like them. If a financial situation were to come up and it got really expensive, do you think the doctor might help you with those bills? Because they're not. And so like, it's always a frustration of mine, but I understand what their issue is. Like it does make it harder, but all of those things, those sacrifices that people are making end up paying off for that client. It saves them a lot of money in the long run. And so I'm okay with them having a little extra work, so that way this client can eat better. So if you like this clip, do me a favor, click right up here so that way you can watch the full podcast, and then also click right up here for more content just like this.